All right, let's journey back in time, about 1,000 years, to a powerful kingdom that once dominated southern Africa. We're going to uncover the secrets of Mapungubwe. And we'll do it by looking at the amazing clues its people left buried in the earth. Now, this is a perfect prep for your exams, so let's jump right in.
Okay, so here's our game plan. First, we'll look at what made Mapungubwe so rich, its wealth and tech. Then, we'll climb the sacred hill to understand the king's power, see how their society was structured, map out their amazing trade routes, and finally, check out the legacy they left behind. All right, first stop, wealth, trade, and technology. Let's dig into what made Mapungubwe a real powerhouse in its day. What was the foundation of all its power? So, the story of Mapungubwe's incredible rise, it's really all tied to one very special, shiny metal. You could say it's the key to understanding just about everything about this kingdom. So, let's start with that. Why was gold so important to Mapungubwe? Simple answer, gold was the engine that drove their entire kingdom. It's what made them unbelievably wealthy. But here's the really sad part. What we have today is just a tiny fraction of what was once there. So many priceless gold artifacts were just stolen by treasure hunters over the years. That means a huge part of Mapungubwe's story is just gone forever. Now, all this incredible wealth wasn't just sitting in a vault somewhere. Nope. It was used to build connections across the entire globe. And believe me, you might be surprised to find out just how far their trade network really stretched.
I mean, just look at this. It's an incredible global reach for a kingdom from that time. We're not just talking about neighbors, we're talking about trade routes that went all the way to Europe, across the Indian Ocean to massive empires in China and India, and way up into North Africa. This wasn't some isolated little kingdom. This was a seriously sophisticated international trading hub. But to make all these valuable things to trade, you need some serious skills, right? So what were the key technologies the people of Mapungubwe had totally mastered?
Well, for one, they were absolute experts with metal. They could smelt iron to make really strong tools and weapons. And their goldsmiths, wow, they crafted objects of just breathtaking beauty. And on top of all that, they were master potters, creating these unique and beautiful ceramics.
Okay, so you've got all this wealth, this amazing trade, this advanced technology. What kind of place did that create? How big was this ancient city anyway? How many people are we talking about? Get this, somewhere between 5 and 10,000 people. I mean, this was no small village. This was a buzzing, thriving city. In fact, archaeologists say it was the very first major urban center in all of southern Africa. That's a big deal. All right, now let's go to the very heart of the kingdom, both in a physical and a spiritual sense. Mapungubwe Hill. This place was the absolute center of power. See, the hill itself was way more than just a big landmark. It had this deep spiritual meaning for everyone in Mapungubwe. So, what was it that made this hill so secret? It really came down to a core belief. They believed the hill was the home of their ancestral spirits. It was like a bridge between the world of the living and the world of the spirits, which made it an incredibly powerful and very restricted place. And if the hill was sacred, you can bet the person who lived on top of it was the most powerful person around. So what was so special about where the king lived? Okay, so the king had a stone-walled palace right on top of this sacred hill. He was physically separated from everybody else down below. Now, this was a brand new, even radical idea at the time. It was the very first time in Southern Africa's history that a leader lived so far apart from their people. It was a massive physical statement of his power.
And this physical separation, the king up high and everyone else down low, it points to a much bigger story. Let's dive into what archaeology tells us about the very distinct social structure of Mapungubwe.
Yeah, this definitely wasn't a society where everyone was equal. It was clearly divided into classes. So, can you explain the two main groups that made up Mapungubwe's population? It's almost as simple as just looking at the landscape. You had the elite, the royalty, the king's family living a life apart, up on the sacred hill. And then way down at the bottom lived the common people. Where you lived literally defined who you were in this society. And you know where we find the most spectacular evidence for this class divide? In the royal graves they discovered on the hill. I mean, these were not ordinary burials. So, what kind of treasures did the archaeologists actually pull out of the ground? Just look at this list of treasures. It's unbelievable.
In one grave, they found a woman buried with solid gold armbands and thousands of gold beads. In another, a man with a gold necklace. And then, in the most famous grave of all, they found a man buried with a golden scepter, a golden bowl, and of course, the iconic golden rhino of Mapungubwe.
So all this incredible gold and ivory wasn't just for show. It was currency. It was used to buy luxury goods from thousands of miles away. So let's zoom in a little closer on the nuts and bolts of Mapungubwe's international trade network.
Okay, understanding any trade network is pretty simple, right? You just need to know what's going out, the exports, and what's coming in, the imports. Now, you're going to want to pay close attention here because this is a really key detail for your exams. And this comparison tells such a cool story. Look at what they exported. Raw, valuable African resources like gold, ivory, copper, and animal hides. And what did they get in return? They imported finished luxury goods from places like India and China, things like beautiful glass beads, fancy jewelry, and fine cloth.
Eventually, the kingdom of Mapungubwe declined, but its story? That didn't end there. So let's move on to our final section and see how this ancient kingdom's powerful legacy is still making an impact today.
You know, the name Mapungubwe carries so much weight in South Africa, even today. It's become a symbol for the absolute highest level of achievement. So what exactly is the modern Order of Mapungubwe? It's actually the highest honor a South African citizen can receive. It's awarded by the president for excellence and exceptional achievement. And get this, the very first person to receive the highest class of this award? None other than Nelson Mandela himself. That's a direct link from this ancient kingdom to the nation's modern heroes. But this brings us to one last really important question. We have all this incredible information, but how do we know any of it? I mean, really, why is this one particular field of science our only window into their lost world? It all comes down to this. The people of Mapungubwe didn't leave behind any written records. No books, no diaries, no letters. So everything we know about them comes from the things they left behind in the soil. It's like every artifact is a word, and every ruin is a sentence. Archaeology is the only language Mapungubwe still speaks. And it makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other secrets are still out there, just waiting to be unearthed?